Violence against the Palestinian people in the West Bank continued and has spread to Gaza with an aerial bombardment that Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu shows no sign of stopping. At least 192 people, including 58 children and 34 women, have been killed in the Gaza Strip in the past week. More than 1,200 others have been wounded. In the West Bank, Israeli forces have killed at least 13 Palestinians. Meanwhile, rockets fired from Gaza, from Hamas, have killed 10 Israelis. The recent round of violence started with a violent expulsion of residents in East Jerusalem's neighborhood of Sheikh Jarrah, land that Israeli settlers are claiming is theirs. And then, of course, there's the repression at the Al-Aqsa Mosque that I think a lot of people saw. I wanted to just play this one little clip of a vice journalist who caught on camera an Israeli soldier about to throw a flashbang at an emergency worker and journalists.
Literally journalists and medics. So you can see there are emergency service workers here, there's an ambulance there are journalists. Here we go, look at this, here we go. Oh, he just told him not to throw. So you can see it. They saw the camera and didn't throw. So there you can see in his hands. Stun grenade.
So, right, that is outside of Al-Aqsa Mosque. That's around May 6th. So that was early in this. And it's basically like an IDF soldier about to throw a stun grenade right up next to an ambulance that's already attending to people and then doesn't because he's being filmed. By the way, that same journalist, Hind Hassan, wrote this on Twitter. It's 7 days, now 8 days actually, as of this recording, since Israel began bombing Gaza. And for 7 days, the Israeli crossing into the Strip has been closed, blocking humanitarians, medics, and journalists from entering. Residential areas were pounded earlier this morning, and civilians remain buried, both dead and alive, under the rubble. Obviously, there's far worse videos to show than the one that I showed of an IDF soldier almost throwing a flashbang grenade at an ambulance. I don't really feel like showing all of the horrific videos. I think we've seen them, and if not now, in 2014 and 2009 and every other goddamn year that this happens. But it is important to remember.
If not now, when, though, really?
Exactly. If not now, when, as the awesome anti-Zionist Jewish organization says. But it's been devastating. And NATO, look, I've found a bright side. I found a bright side in all of this. Which is that this is a sign that Israel's vaccination campaign is working. Okay? Because some of us, we get vaxxed and we go back to eating out, or some of us go back to hugging friends. Americans go back to mass shootings, and the IDF goes back to ethnic cleansing. You know, it is the old normal. And that means something's working. That's literally the only silver lining I could find. Obviously, if you guys didn't see this, I'll let you know that Israel also bombed the headquarters of Associated Press and Al Jazeera, giving everyone inside of that building an hour to evacuate, and claiming that Hamas was operating out of the building. And for everyone saying that it's bad to target journalists, to be fair, Hamas is using the truth as a human shield. So just everyone needs to remember that part.
Yesterday, there were protests all over the world in solidarity, and it's really an incredible moment. I mean, I have been part of the anti-Zionist Jewish left for many years, and I feel like it's sort of moving to the mainstream in some ways. Like the fact that the Squad is speaking out critically in Congress, and Bernie Sanders is as well, is a big change. Like that didn't exist. And so there were these huge protests all over the world in solidarity with the people of Palestine. I went to the one in San Francisco yesterday. Organizers estimate 9,000 people were there. It was incredible. I brought one of the and it was fun being there because it was like right in the Mission District, which if you know San Francisco, there's like the street is packed, like shoulder to shoulder, people there like waving, with shirts that say "Another Jew against apartheid," Palestine will be free, etc. And then there are people trying to get past, being like, I'm trying to get to brunch. Like I heard there's a good shakshuka over here at that place. Can I get the shakshuka? So that was happening.
They thought they were in the brunch line. Like, wow.
Oh yeah, it's going to be a while till I get a table. Is this for eating in the parklet outdoors? So and so it's like a real like a teachable moment for my kid, because I was with my child who's non-binary, and we saw somebody holding a sign that said that no to pink washing, and my kid was like, "What is pink washing?" And I was like, "Well, let's go ask that person." So we walked over, and I said, "Hi, excuse me, I'm Nato. This is my child, and they're 12 and they're non-binary, and they want to know what pink washing is." And the person was like a Palestinian activist and was like, "Oh my God, I'm non-binary too. What's up? Like non-binary solidarity."
Hell
and then
yeah.
like gave my kid like an instantaneous crash course on homophobia in Israel and Palestine, and it was like a very mind-blowing moment for them to like learn that on the spot. But then there were some confusing parts, like people were chanting, "We don't want 2 states, we want 48." And my kid was like, which was, I think, referring to the 1948 territory of Palestine before the creation of the state of Israel. But my kid was like, "Why do they want 48 states?" So it's like, oh, let me unpack this for you.
We don't want 2 states, we want 48. Yeah, no, that's the right answer, is like 48 states. It seems like a lot of states.
Like, why don't you start with 1 and build up from there?
Well, okay, to the point that yes, the squad is speaking out, and it does feel like a sea change moment. I just, there was a very valiant statement put out by the White House. I'm sure everyone saw President Biden putting out in a tweet, "Today, the president spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, reaffirmed his strong support for Israel's right to defend itself against rocket attacks from Hamas and other terrorist groups in Gaza, and condemned these indiscriminate attacks against Israel."
Blah. It makes me so mad that and there aren't that many issues like this that people have to like equivocate and condition it so much. Like people can't just be like, it's not, you shouldn't like bomb an entire neighborhood. That's not good. That they have to be like, well, of course Israel has a right to exist, and of course Hamas is a horrible organization. Of course we condemn the rocket attacks. Of course we condemn extremism on all sides, and of course everyone shares some responsibility. But at least we can. It's like there's like all of this just bullshit that people have to get through to be like, yes, but maybe also I'm not sure about this. You know what I mean? Like it's such mealy mouth liberal garbage.
Absolutely. And it is like, I think it is the one place, as someone who's been excited by the progressive, at least proposals, a lot of things haven't passed, but some have. This is where the status quo Joe is really showing them true colors, which is actually kind of surprising to me, because to be honest with you, Obama's legacy in the Middle East, if you guys remember, as much as, a lot of folks hate Obama, will never give him a credit for literally anything, the one shred of credit was that there was a shred of distance between his foreign policy and Israel. And he started to step to Israeli settlements. And there was that whole hot mic incident where he was telling the French president Sarkozy that like Netanyahu, oh God, tell me about him. I got to deal with him every day. He's a pain in my ass. Meanwhile, if you guys don't remember this, probably one of the most racist things that ever happened, and I can only chalk it up to just straight disrespect and racism. Netanyahu came to speak to Congress without telling President Barack Obama. Like, disrespect, hateful, racist, like crap. Like he just, I mean, you guys can go look it up. It was like, it's a huge slap in the face. And very indicative of where Netanyahu stands generally. Obviously, we're going to go into this a lot more on Tuesday with Noura Erakat, and I really hope that everybody listens and watches. And like, again, like, this is not the show that's going to like handhold you through like your both sides have a right, etc. Or not even, nobody says both sides have a right. You're like, both sides are responsible.
It's complicated. There's a lot of history.
There's other people, there's other places to go for that kind of stuff. Look, this podcast has been very, very firm from the beginning, from everyone we've had on, from all of the anti-Zionist Jews, from the Palestinians, from where we stand. Like, this is not, especially at this point, which is arguably, although there's a glimmer of hope, it's a worse point than it's been. It's both worse and also more hopeful. Let me just play a little bit of why it's more hopeful. I do just want to end on this before we wrap it up about Israel-Palestine. As Nato said, people in the squad finally speaking out around this issue and not equivocating. And here is Representative Ayanna Pressley doing just that.
Palestinians are being told the same thing as Black folks in America. There is no acceptable form of resistance. We are bearing witness to egregious human rights violations. The pain, trauma, and terror that Palestinians are facing is not just the result of this week's escalation, but the consequence of years of military occupation. In Sheikh Jarrah, the Israeli government is violently dispossessing yet another neighborhood of Palestinian families from homes they have lived in for decades. We cannot stand idly and complicitly by and allow the occupation and oppression of the Palestinian people to continue. We cannot remain silent when our government sends $3.8 billion of military aid to Israel that is used to demolish Palestinian homes, imprison Palestinian children, and displace Palestinian families. A budget is a reflection of our values. I'm committed to ensuring that our government does not fund state violence in any form, anywhere.
So good. So good. Oh, gosh. So everyone obviously watch that full speech, but also you can call your electeds as well and demand that we do not funnel $3.8 billion a year to Israel. And yeah, there are steps being taken. Look, boycott, divestment, sanctions is a movement that the Palestinian people have asked for the people in solidarity with them around the world take up in terms of taking money out of Israel, out of profiteering on occupation. So have you become a patron yet? Patreon.com/Bitchuation Room is where you can directly support this show and help me make it sustainable so that I can do more of what I do best, doing this.